For the month of September, the country was pounded by two typhoons, Typhoon Luis and Tropical Storm Mario. Last year, the province of Bohol was left devastated by a 7.2 magnitude earthquake, while the province of Leyte was battered by Typhoon Yolanda. These natural disasters damaged thousands of properties such as houses and commercial buildings, left vehicles of all shapes and sizes floating on flooded streets or dangling on tree branches, not to mention the countless of lives lost because of them. Unfortunately, it is not a common practice for Filipinos to get insurance policies for themselves and their properties. Nor is it common practice to include in their policies protection from the devastation caused by natural disasters. These events that are outside of human control are termed as acts of nature.
Acts of God is basically referring to what they call perils, no? Situations that are considered catastrophic. So these would be things like earthquake, typhoon, flood. There are different types of insurance policies that will cover things. Policies that cover their cars and policies that will cover their houses, no? Their residences.
For many Filipinos, getting an insurance policy is not one of their priorities. Since the Philippines is located directly within the ring of fire, most insurance brokers recommend that Filipinos get themselves insured as well as their properties, such as their houses and motor vehicles.
At the end of the day, all it is just a method, a way to handle the situation where you have losses. What happens if something goes wrong to your car, or your house, your company? Where will I get funds? Where will I get the money to rebuild, to buy another car, to buy another house? And that's where insurance is.
But before we buy an insurance policy, we have to know, what should we look for in an insurance policy? What are acts of nature, and are these automatically included in most basic insurance policies? And should a natural disaster occur, how can the insured claim their benefits from insurance companies? Good evening. You are watching Legal Help Desk on 9TV. This show is about making the law work for you by giving legal advice on topics that matter to you. I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno.
And I'm Attorney Rod Nepomuceno. Tonight, we will discuss your legal rights on insurance, specifically under the Acts of Nature coverage, what you need to know about the Acts of Nature coverage, and what you need to do to claim your benefits from insurance companies.
Our guests for tonight are Attorney Dennis Cabucos, Chief of the Regulation, Enforcement, and Prosecution Division, and Attorney Joanne Castro, Media Relations Officer of the Insurance Commission. Good evening.
Good evening, Attorney Rod, Attorney Karen.
Hi, Attorney Joanne and Attorney Dennis, thank you very much for joining us. And in a way, appropriate tong topic natin for tonight.
Because just last week, we had magkasunod yung kay Typhoon Luis and then Tropical Storm Mario, which brought a lot of damages again to a lot of properties. In fact, kahit yung cousin ko was texting with me na meron siyang friend, nag-float away daw yung car sa Makati and she was traumatized because she had her young daughter inside the car and talagang lumutang yung kotse.
So definitely it's something that's sort of like relevant now, no, at these times. Now, before we start off, you know, for me personally, insurance, the concept of insurance is probably the best invention, one of the best inventions of man. No? But for some reason, Filipinos are allergic with insurance.
So ilan percentage ba up to now yung insured in the Philippines?
In the Philippines, we have a data that 25% of the population are now covered by insurance. That is as of last year.
That's still very low,
no?
Compared to 100 million population in the Philippines.
So what are the elements? What are the specific elements of contract of insurance? Because for a lot of people, whenever they get insurance, it's normally a thick, normally finely printed paper na print na ng car company.
And generally what would be a contract of insurance? Because some people, pag sa cars, ito yung mga susceptible. We just saw the footages. Talagang susceptible siya sa mga bagyo, baha. And people always think na, no, may TPL na ako. I already have insurance for my car. So maybe you can clarify, what really is a contract of insurance?
Well, a contract of insurance, this is actually a written instrument or a document containing the the agreement between the two parties, no?
Okay.
Between the insurer and the insured, and the insurer promised to indemnify the insured for any loss or any liability or any damage to the property or asset of the insured, no? And for guaranteeing or assuming that risk, the insurer is entitled to the payment of premium.
Premiums, okay. So basically, the elements there is payment of a premium, there's risk, and then a particular property or a particular, well, a subject matter that would be sort of like covered by the insurance, right?
Yes.
And then indemnification.
And
so
then,
okay.
so we already know basically yung kung ano yung nasa contract, but in terms of what we call what you're insuring against, meaning some people insure against health, but now we're concentrating on natural calamities or what we call acts of God. What types of natural calamities or acts of God are normally insurable, meaning we can really find insurance policies for that? Maybe Attorney Joanne or Attorney Dennis?
Yeah.
These are normally the we call that perils,
Perils, yeah.
Normally, these are the typhoons, the flood, the earthquake, which may be earthquake that may cause fire or tremor, and tornado, cyclone, or anything that may cause significant damage to the property.
Which are unexpected in a way, they're not man-made.
Yes.
So sometimes they're called acts of God, sometimes acts of nature. I don't know why they call it acts of God. Parang it seems that God is
punishing
punishing us. No?
Yeah.
I think let's call it acts of nature na lang. Baka
But
malindol tayo
out of
dito.
curiosity,
But,
if you see a clause in the insurance policy, kasi normally before you sign or buy insurance, titignan mo what types of coverage are here. Or I guess that's a tip for our viewers. Check first kung anong types of coverage are offered. But if you see just a general phrase that says acts of God or acts of nature, ano yung automatic covered? Because what if the insurance company says, okay, we're covering typhoons, flooding, pero hindi kasama ang earthquake? Is that, what are the maybe tips for people who are looking for insurance in terms of looking for keywords na dapat nandun?
Normally, the policy contains the specific peril. For example, if it is typhoon, flood, they will not mention the acts of God, but they will enumerate all those events
okay, but
that are being covered.
Can it be a general statement like just covering acts of God? Pag
Or
ganun
is
ba,
it better to insist
or,
na?
Yeah, is it better to insist na, as Attorney Karen mentioned, na naka-enumerate siya?
Yes,
Yes.
it is a standard practice that insurance companies enumerate what certain acts of God are covered. And just to add, the acts of God coverage can be either a standalone policy, meaning there is a policy which is specifically intended to cover acts of God, such as an earthquake insurance, a fire insurance.
So it's standalone normally. So it's normally acts of God are not covered by the standard, I guess, property insurance.
It is not normally covered by a standard insurance, but it can be agreed upon by the parties and inserted as coverage through endorsement.
So for those who already think they're insured, it's better to check your insurance policy because it's not standard to have insurance against acts of God.
What do you mean by endorsement? Some of our televiewers may not understand. What do you mean by endorsement? What has to be done for it to be included?
Okay, endorsement, these are additional provisions which can either add certain coverages in your existing policy.
Parang rider.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
And it is important that these endorsements or riders should have prior approval from the Insurance Commission as in a policy, because all insurance policy should be approved by the Insurance Commission.
Okay. And for someone, if I'm buying insurance, is that approval, can I assume that the insurance company already received the approval, or they're the ones who obtained the approval? Or is it something that I have to look for and ask from that insurance company selling to me?
In order to be protected, I think the would-be insured can check with the Insurance Commission if that policy is approved or not.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to ask then about acts of nature or as they say, acts of God. No? Kasi this seems to be the focal point. No? Kasi usually it connotes things that you don't anticipate that will happen and usually brought about by nature. But let's say, for example, the list in your policy indicates floods, but let's say it was because of a burst pipe. May nag-burst na pipe ng MWSS or Maynilad, for example, and nag-flood yung house mo. Are those considered part of flooding under the definition of acts of God?
Yes, flooding can be caused by typhoon or like for example the
utility flooding.
Yes, increase of the tide, for example. As long as the land is located, the property is located in an area which is not normally inundated by water. So the water should come from without, not from, from
And I guess meron ako mga questions na dalawa. One would be if, for instance, you already know that prone to flooding yung area ninyo, and yet you left it parking there even if there was already an early warning that may padating na bagyo. Or second, if you're insured against fire, pero kaya ka nasunog is because tinamaan ka ng kidlat. So those are things I want to ask you later, but for now, we'll have to take a short break. Legal Helpdesk will return, so stay tuned.
Geographically, the Philippines is located where numerous natural disasters can occur, such as typhoons, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and floods. These acts of nature have become a detriment to many Filipinos, losing homes, livelihood, modes of transportation, and to an extent, human lives.
In the past, we used to call these perils acts of God. We changed it to acts of nature. The cost for the standard policy is separate from the cost of the acts of nature. It was only in 2009 that we realized the importance of acts of nature as part of the perils that we have to insure against. After Ondoy, we saw ourselves in a difficult shape, principally because we only knew the fire and lightning covers as the pertinent covers to buy for ourselves.
And since Typhoon Ondoy, the onslaught brought about by natural disasters have increased, bringing more awareness for people to insure their lives, homes, and motor vehicles. Should a natural disaster occur, what is the step-by-step process of claiming the benefits from insurance companies?
You just call your insurer and report the loss. The insurer now validates your call and looks into his records and validates, after which it has two options. Either it, on an in-house basis, adjusts the loss or refers this to a third party called adjusters. The adjusters go now to the area affected by the loss and determine the loss within the specifications, within the parameters of the policy that was issued, and then values the loss for the insurer. When you have reported this incident of loss to your insurer, that should already trigger the insurer to do the rest. Until such time that there is coordination between the insurer and the insured and or the adjusters for documentation to validate the loss and to determine the actual value of the loss. When both parties agree to that particular value, then the insurer is given by law to settle or to pay the loss as agreed upon within 30 days from the completion of all this documentation and from the completion of that agreement between the two parties.
And like any transaction that involves money, there are certain requirements needed when filing your claims for your insurance benefit.
Kung building ang apektado, siyempre, we go through a process of finding out what is the damage to the building. Ano ba ang pangangailangan natin dito from the insured? Definitely, meron ba kayong original building plans yan? And then, meron ba kayong costing yan? Magkano ba binild yung house na yan bago mangyari itong sakuna, etc. All that the motor vehicle owner has to submit would be the documents that will ascertain ownership, CROR. No? And two, maybe together with the insurer, comes up with his own valuation of the loss para mapabilis.
With the rise of natural disasters pummeling the country, it is always best to be protected from these. Work with a trusted insurance company and make sure to pay your monthly premiums to avoid any arrears to ensure the protection of your properties should the need arise.
And my advice is for those who have these types of assets, get insurance for yourselves. It's important for insureds or for prospects or for owners of properties, both fixed assets and motor vehicles, to insure against acts of nature.
You're still watching Legal Help Desk on 9TV with our guests, Attorney Dennis Cabucos and Attorney Joanne Castro.
All right.
So kanina before the commercial break, we were talking about cars, for instance, wherein it's insured against flooding. And then, kunwari, alam mo ng flood-prone area and meron ng forecast na babagyo and yet you still parked in that same flood-prone area. Can the insurance company deny insurance coverage in that case?
So generally, if your car is covered by an acts of nature clause, it would be normal that the insurance company would pay you or indemnify you against your loss. However, the insurance company can also deny your claim because there are certain provisions on the policy that you should adopt a risk reduction measure. So there are additional, the insurance company can insert additional conditions for your acts of nature coverage, such as you should employ a risk reduction measure.
No.
Okay, so you have to really be careful when you're reading your insurance policy, meaning, am I also prepared to be vigilant in terms of looking after my property na ini-insure?
Yes, that is correct. Because although it is common that insurance contracts are contracts of adhesion, it is also prudent on the part of the would-be insured to read the policy. Yes.
What about that case, Attorney Dennis, na if you're covered by an insurance against fire, pero ang naging cause ng fire would be, for instance, lightning. So that's an act of nature. But kanina we were discussing that you sometimes need extra coverage in order to be covered by acts of nature. Would the insured have a claim in that case?
Yes. In a normal fire policy, lightning is included as one of the perils. No? Yes. If the damage is caused by lightning, the claim is payable.
But of course, if, let's say, it was brought about by carelessness of the owner, for example, again, then the provisions you were saying earlier about risk reduction measures will take place, diba? Will apply. Now, I guess one of the things that bother people, and there's a reason why only 25% are covered. I think generally the population, they feel that insurance contracts are too complex and complicated. Will you agree with me? Because as you mentioned earlier, they're contracts of adhesion, meaning normally nakadraft na siya. The provisions are drafted by the one that wants you to be insured, and you just normally sign. Now, can people, for example, who seek this insurance coverage, can they have a say? Let's say I don't want this provision this article number 8. I don't like this provision number 10. And can there be? Can they have a say? Can you negotiate
for
the
other types
provisions?
of coverage?
Yes, insurance is a contract between two parties, and people, I think, they think that they cannot change the policy.
Yes.
But in reality, they can question, they can ask the insurance company to delete some of these provisions or can change that. Even if it is a standard policy, it can still be changed and it can be done through endorsement.
So, hindi pwede sabihin ng insurance company, no, this is standard, take it or leave it.
They can say that, no? But if the account is big, for example, they need, for example, that account, they will,
Okay. So it's easier siguro if you're
agree with
a
the
bigger
insured, yes.
company.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Now we have some questions from our viewers. Bonnie is asking, what should I consider before getting insurance? How will I know if the insurance company I will get insurance from can be trusted? Yeah. So I guess two things. So one, what do I look for in an insurance contract or an insurance policy? The second one is how does he know if that insurance company can be trusted? Can they go to a website of the Insurance Commission and determine which are the accredited insurance companies?
Okay, so before getting an insurance policy, of course, it is important for the would-be insured to determine what type of insurance does he or she needs. And of course, we have to determine how much of our money are we willing to put or invest to an insurance contract.
Okay.
Because there are some problems wherein they would be attracted by certain insurance policy, but then it is not within one's budget, so they would not be able to pay the premium on time, and this gives the insurer the right to cancel because of non-payment of premium. So in getting an insurance, you have to determine if that is one of your priorities and if it is within your budget, so that you would be able to pay it as the premium becomes due. And to answer the second question, as to how would they know if the insurance company can be trusted, all insurance companies in the Philippines are regulated and supervised by the Insurance Commission. They are registered with the Insurance Commission, and they can always check our website to know if that insurance company is registered with the Insurance
Okay, that's
Commission.
a very helpful tip.
Yeah.
You can check on the website if
Yes.
an insurance company is registered. Okay, we have another question from Leonard. My car was washed away by the flooding caused by the last typhoon. I don't know if it's Luis or Mario. And I don't know where it is anymore. Can I still be covered by my insurance policy?
Okay.
So, kailangan mo bang
Attorney Dil-
ma-pinpoint kung nasaan at mapakita sa
Para
insurance
proof
company?
of loss. I get proof of.
Yeah.
You have to prove that.
It
that
is
got
one
lost.
of the processes, no,
Yeah.
that they have to estimate the loss. And so, what does Leonard have to do here?
Well, in the contract of insurance, there must be a specific property that you own. You must identify the covered property. So if there is no more property, there's nothing to insure.
Okay, nothing to insure. But in this case, insured na yung car,
Insured
nabayaran
yung car.
niya na yung insurance, but because of the typhoon, nawala na yung car, he cannot pinpoint kung
wash away.
nasaan. So,
Wash away.
how can he claim? Can he just file his claim for the total value of the car?
Affidavit of loss ba yan? Na parang I can't find my car anymore. Oh. Is there?
Ano yung
Yes,
gagawin
he should inform immediately the insurance company regarding the loss of the vehicle, so that the insurance company can make some investigation and can also provide the list of documents that he should comply. And
So,
to be
hindi naman.
submitted
So,
to the
Leonard can
company.
still claim from his insurance company in spite of the fact na hindi niya na mapakita yung kotse kasi natangay
Yes.
na. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. We have a caller on the line. His name is Rom of Cainta. Rom, good evening.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll try to get
We'll
Rom
try-
back. Oo.
okay, we'll try
Let's
to get,
siguro answer some questions muna from those who posted
Yeah.
in our Twitter and Facebook page.
Okay.
There's one from Claire. Typically, how much will be charged or added to my policy if I add the acts of nature coverage? So ito yung kaninang binanggit nyo,
Yeah.
Attorney Joanne, na hindi automatic ang acts of nature na coverage. So, magkano normally? How much more cost does it add?
So for motor vehicles, the minimum that insurance company can impose for the additional coverage of acts of nature is 0.5% of the property.
Okay, so for a 1 million peso car, it's 0.5%.
Minimum.
That's only around 5,000
5,000
pesos.
pesos.
So, minimum yun.
Minimum
Mga
yun.
ganun yung
Minimum yun.
estimate.
But they can charge higher.
They can charge higher because it would depend on whether your area is a flood-prone area. So they
The
can
premium
always
can go higher.
yes.
So it can happen if you live, for instance, in Marikina, which we all know is more flood-prone than, for instance, Makati.
Makati.
Certain parts of Makati. Then it can happen na mas mahal yung babayaran mo if you're from Marikina.
Yes.
Okay, the risk is higher. All right.
So for now, we'll have to take another short break. Legal Help Desk will return after these messages. You're still tuned in to Legal Help Desk on 9TV, and we have a caller on the line, Rom of Cainta. Good evening, Rom.
Yeah, good evening, Attorney Karen and Attorney Rod.
Yes, good evening.
I would like to generalize my question. On the notion that mahirap makolekta raw sa insurance companies when the time comes. No? My question is this: can the insurance commission, regulate the policies of all insurance companies? Because when you sign the contract, by the time that something would happen, some certain things would come out. Ang hirap ng to haggle with them, and then you end up getting less with what is supposed you paid for on your premium. So, like an example is the building insurance, where I used to be a director of this particular condominium. Not all directors read entirely the policies. When I came to read it, ang daming so many restrictions, as you call it, as risk reduction. So can the insurance commission generalize this in favorable to the clients, to the people of the republic? No, kasi it seems to be unfair. But when the time comes that you need to claim, it's so small already. So can the insurance commission do something about it?
That's a good question.
Yeah, Attorney Dennis, maybe you want to give that a shot?
Yes, it's important to read the policy provisions, no? Like for example, the deductions as well as the exclusions. So it doesn't mean that you are covered by certain peril. The insurance company will have to pay you. There are some general conditions.
But the question of Rom then is if, for instance, the insurance commission can do something to help them out. Because katulad nga na sinabi nyo kanina na it is kind of a take it or leave it type of contract. Kasi if I were to negotiate and say, this is my insurance coverage for the car, pero ayoko na sa akin pa yung responsibility na I have to make sure ma-move ko yung kotse pag merong forecast because obviously sobrang kong busy sa office, yung mga ganong types. And you said earlier, yes, you can negotiate, pero it's also up to the insurance company kung sabihin nila na we don't accept your terms and kung ayaw mo magpa-insure, di wag. So, I guess Rom's question, tama ba Rom, na how can the insurance commission intervene to help yung mga insured like them?
Yes, attorney, that's right.
We have actually one division entertaining the complainants. You can call the insurance commission. We have the public assistance.
You have a hotline.
Yes, a whole division to entertain the claimants, and then we ask the insurance companies to come to the office and explain to the claimants why is it that the claim is being denied like that. And so,
in this case, kung wala pa silang claims, but upon getting a proposed insurance contract, they find the terms to be either unfavorable or too one-sided. Can they still report that to the insurance commission to ask for help in negotiating for a better contract?
actually, they can change the contract. They can, if that is a director's liability insurance, so most likely the corporation is the policy holder. So it could be a big account that they can tell the insurance company, we want this exclusion to be deleted from the policy because it will not serve us.
So in other words, the insurance commission, if I may, just take off from the question of Rom, can intervene and somehow mediate in order for them to be able to get more, I guess, kasi I think Rom was asking, minsan yung claim nila, sobrang late na at the end of the day. Tama ba, Rom?
Yes, Attorney.
Yeah, so is there a mediation or, let's say, maybe arbitration, for lack of a better term, division on the part of the insurance commission where it helps those who are claiming to make it easier and not like parang
kasi sometimes it doesn't make sense, mag-hire ka pa ng lawyer, yung claim mo naman hindi ganoon kamahal. So it's really a weird decision to make na, should I still go after the claim? In which case, we need a lawyer, but then mas gastos pa. So, what would be your advice to people like Rom?
They can go to the insurance commission, and we have one division doing that with several people.
Wait, which division is this?
Public Assistance and Mediation Division. So I was formally assigned to that, and what we were doing during the time, we called the insurance company to explain. And many of the cases did not reach the court because of the settlement between the parties.
I see. Okay, there you have it, Rom, no? So they have a public assistance office division.
Can can I say something?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I would rather suggest that maybe the Insurance Commission can lay down certain general policies to be the guideline, and then any deviation in the future or any problem that would come out can just be argued between the Insurance Commission and the client and that of the insurance company. It would be less tedious rather than no guideline at all, and then you just haggle it out and talk it out with the Insurance Commission while the problem, in order that the problem be solved. So the last thing that I would say is maybe the Insurance Commission can make can make a general guideline. Then later na lang kung may mga deviations that would happen.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion, I guess.
So maybe you can take this up with with your policy division.
Right.
Thank you, Rom. Dapat pala naging guest natin si Rom dito, di ba? Meron siyang
Thank you so much, Rom.
Thank you so much, Rom. Those are
Okay,
very
thank
good
you.
inputs.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, we still have some questions from our viewers. From Randall, we bought a car 6 months ago with an insurance policy including acts of God. When the last flooding happened, we were confident that we were covered. That's why we brought it to the CASA. The CASA called us and told us that the insurance company will not allow them to repair the car, claiming that we are not covered for acts of God. So we called the salesman and he said that the endorsement for our policy was not sent on time and therefore our claim is not valid. I'm assuming that's the endorsement for the act of God clause. No? What is our best option to settle this? And so his understanding is covered sila. The salesman said that yes, you're covered sa acts of God. Yung pala, the salesman,
Mukhang na negligence came from the insurance company because they were not able to forward it up, or one of them not able to forward it on time before the flooding occurred. So what would be the best remedy in this case?
Well, I think the issue there is the coverage, whether there is an endorsement for the acts of God. So if there is an endorsement, for example, issued by the insurance company, it's the insurance company that issues the endorsement. So if it was received by the salesman, then supposed to be, there is a coverage already for the acts of God.
In this case, I think the salesman claimed that may coverage na, but did not act
Kung
on the
walang
endorsement.
relationship yung salesman because he's with the dealer or retailer na nagbenta ng car, and then the insurance is another company, can he go after the salesman or that retailer for the car instead of because the insurance of course will say
cause of action ba
we're
siya?
not a party, there's no contract yet kasi hindi naman umabot sa amin yung endorsement.
Yes, if there is misrepresentation on the part of the salesman, he can be disciplined as an intermediary. It's either that we suspend the license or cancel the license.
Okay, so is this also a case that he can bring up for mediation with the insurance commission?
Yes.
Okay.
All
So
right.
later we'll repeat the number, no, because it seems that the insurance commission can help settle cases without going to court.
Okay.
Our next question is from Troy. We insured our house and our car and included the acts of God coverage, both soaked in flood water for 2 days. When we called the insurance company, they told us that they couldn't find our policy and therefore we can't be covered. Is this even possible? What can be the solution of our problem?
Missing policy, is that
Is that an
a defense?
excuse?
A defense of the
Weird,
part of
no?
them?
I know. And,
Perhaps Attorney John, give it a shot.
A missing policy is not a defense for an insurance company to deny a claim because normally they would have a copy of that insurance policy. So my advice would be if your insurance policy is missing or was stolen, you can either execute an affidavit of loss attesting to the fact that your insurance policy was lost, including the documents required in order for the insurance company to process your claims.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Now our last question is from Our last question is from Albert. Bilis, no? We have a family house in Albay and within the danger zone of Mount Mayon, and we are afraid that the volcano would erupt anytime soon. If so, how can we file for our benefits? What if the documents required were damaged by fires or other forms of destruction caused by the volcanic eruption? It's kind of related to what we talked about earlier, no? I guess that's a problem that they're having, no? What if,
for the requirements for the for fire policy, no, I think they have to present the pictures. For example, if they have the pictures of the damaged property, then they have also as much as possible an estimate of the cost of repair, so that the company can take into consideration.
So if they lost a TCT, they can go to the Register of Deeds.
Yes.
Might have a copy of the title, right?
And also the floor plan or the building plan, so that the insurance company can estimate how much does it cost, or how much is the cost of the.
And lastly, siguro before we end this with after our last question, would you say that it's really expensive to be insured? Because I think one of the reasons why there's very little insurance coverage in the Philippines is that a lot of people perceive this to be an added cost. Na sayang sa gastos, dagdag gastos lang yan. Is it really expensive to get insurance coverage?
If your property is of a bigger amount, of course the insurance premiums would be higher because the premiums are based on the value of the property as well as the risk covered by your insurance policy. But as I have said earlier, 25% of Filipinos are now covered by insurance compared to the numbers back in 2009 where we only have 14%. And we attribute the growth in the number of persons covered by insurance because of microinsurance. So microinsurance is a new introduction wherein it is tailored fit for the needs of low-income earners. Okay. So the public can avail of microinsurance products because, as I've said, it is tailored fit for low-income earners because there is a cap for the premium. There is a limit.
Like, what is the cap?
Yes, the limit for insurance premium calculated or computed daily, it must not exceed 7.5% of the minimum wage of non-agricultural workers in Metro Manila. So that is 7.5% of the 466, which is our minimum wage. And the benefit that they can get, the maximum would be not more than 1,000 of the salary of non-agricultural workers in Metro Manila.
So in short, siguro around 38 pesos would be the average
yes,
insurance
34 to 38
premium per
day.
day.
It covers them for what?
It would depend because microinsurance, they have products for life insurance and non-life insurance.
And they can get this from all the accredited insurance companies?
Yes, we have list of insurance companies who offers microinsurance products, and these products are approved by the Insurance Commission.
Actually, we didn't go much into other types of insurance. We concentrated on property insurance. But in fact, when you're talking about acts of God, I know it's it's not a very happy topic to talk about, but it can really cause loss of lives as well. So it makes sense to also look into getting life insurance coverage for your loved ones.
Yeah, my suggestion is that maybe in another episode we cover naman life insurance. Because that's another topic altogether.
Yes.
Right?
But thank you so much. That was very informative. Thank you, Attorney Dennis Cabucos, Chief Regulation Enforcement and Prosecution Division of the Insurance Commission, and Attorney Joan Castro, Media Relations Officer of the Insurance Commission. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Legal Help Desk will be back, so stay tuned. Welcome back to Legal Help Desk on 9TV. And today we had a very relevant topic considering just last week magkasunod na yung mga bagyo and ang dami na namang nasirang properties.
And you get a lot of these messages na parang how can I claim? How can I claim? Diba? So it's certainly a timely topic, and I think it's very important for our televiewers to know na parang hindi automatic yung acts of nature clause in insurance policies.
Yeah. So when you get insurance, make sure that you read it carefully and tignan nyo yung tinatawag nating mga coverage, meaning kung ano ba yung mga insured against kayo, because just because you have property insurance, meaning you insured your house or your car against damages, it's not automatic that acts of God or acts of nature, meaning yung mga damages caused by typhoon, by lightning, by earthquake, are covered. So you have to make sure that it's really there. And if it's not there, it might make sense to add that as one of your insurance coverage. And you can do that by what you call an endorsement in the policy, meaning you have your existing policy and idadagdag lang yung insurance coverage na yun.
Endorsement, no? Now, it's very important to bear in mind, no, ladies and gentlemen, that although most insurance contracts, in fact, practically all, are pre-drafted by the insurance company. And normally, they just give you a form. It's already standardized. The idea is it's still a contract, and therefore you have a say. So if you are the one seeking coverage, you don't necessarily have to just accept what is given to you. You can review the contract and review every provision. And if you have a question on the provision, you can actually tell the insurance company, I have an issue with this particular provision. So although it is a contract of adhesion, and as we lawyers are familiar with that, no, it basically means that it's a pre-drafted contract, and the usual tendency is for the one who's receiving it will just accept it. The good news is, should there be a gray area with that contract, it's always the court, or in this case the insurance commission, will always construe it in favor of the one who just accepted it, diba? So against it's more for the insured rather than the insurance company. So, but I think it's important to stress that you do have a say. It doesn't necessarily mean that just because they give you the contract, you have to accept it just like that. You can suggest provisions.
And in relation to that, if you are having a hard time negotiating with your insurance company, meaning they're being very unreasonable, for instance, you can approach the insurance commission, and they have mediators for this, or they can intervene on your behalf to help you, one, also deal with the insurance company, especially if they're being unfair or unreasonable. And the insurance commission also hears complaints about insurance companies, and what they can do is actually penalize the insurance company if they're engaged in, for instance, unfair practices. And also, if you have a claim and you're finding it difficult to claim from your insurance company, maybe because they're also being unreasonable, or minsan hindi tama yung grounds nila for denying it. Yes. Like for instance, yung kanina may viewer na nagtanong, pagka the insurance company was claiming that they lost the insurance policy. These things, you don't even have to go to court. Go to the insurance commission first, so that one, it's faster, and second, it will cost you less. So we were flashing kanina the number of the insurance commission, and also if you want to check in the first place if you're dealing with a legitimate insurance company, the website of the insurance commission is a helpful tool for you, because you can go online and check if they are registered with the insurance commission, because it's a requirement. An insurance company has to be registered in order to legally do insurance business in the Philippines.
Yeah, so it's quite important. No? Remember, insurance is not just for the rich. It's very important to be insured, and always remember that just because if you lose your policy doesn't mean that you can't collect. All right?
And before we move on, lastly lang pala, for those who think that the insurance is also for just an added gastos and impractical, Attorney Joanne from the Insurance Commission mentioned earlier, now there is what you call micro-insurance, meaning it's really for low-income earners, so you don't have to worry about expensive insurance.
Ayan. Okay, so make sure you study more about insurance, and we insure you that it will be worth your while.
Endorse.
Assure you. All right. Over the week, we have received some questions and comments from our viewers on topics we have previously discussed. Our first recap question is from Hilda or Gilda. What legal action can be filed if the tenant committed jumper on my electricity meter? Okay. So
Gilda, that's actually what you call theft. So
that's
pagnanakaw. So that is what you can file. It's a criminal case, and you can go to a public prosecutor, or what you call a fiscal, and file a criminal complaint for theft. And then madali lang naman yan. At that stage, you don't need a lawyer. You can just go there, dun sa area ninyo where, kasi it's where the offense was committed. So meaning if you're, for instance, living in Quezon City, then you go to the fiscal or public prosecutor's office in Quezon City and file that criminal complaint.
Take pictures of the jumper. Para, obviously, when you're filing a criminal case, you need evidence. No? So you have to take pictures of the jumper, and of course, you'll have to make statements. No, they have to make sure that you're not the one who put the jumper there, all right?
Set up.
Right.
Okay. Our next question is from John. Are dorms covered by the rent control law? What if the dorms don't have permits?
Ayan, okay. Well, dorms are covered, I think bed spacing, as long as it falls under the rent control law, and the rent control law requires, but if it's Metro Manila location, okay, or apartment, then it has to be less than 10,000 pesos monthly rent. No? If it's outside Metro Manila, it's 5,000 pesos. So as long as it falls under that category, and it's really made, it's for residential purposes, then it falls under the rent control law. And so
dorms are covered. And yung lack of a permit, for instance, that's not an excuse for the dorm not to be covered by the rent control law. So the one thing that that dorm would be subject to is additional fines and penalties for operating a business without a permit.
Yeah.
So both,
Baka BIR din. No? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So now we're going to the comment section. So Nak sent us this question on our Facebook page. Oh, it's a question. I just want to know if I have to register the contract that I signed with the landlord. I only have a notarized contract and would want to know if this is legal. Also, how can you tell if an apartment building has the license to operate? Well, if it's notarized.
Yeah.
Well,
if it's a lease contract, if it's covered by the rent control law, meaning if it's within Metro Manila, it does not exceed 10,000 pesos, and then if it's outside of Metro Manila, does not exceed 5,000 pesos. Under the rent control law, you don't even need a signed lease agreement. So, but in case hindi kayo covered on rent control law, then the lease would have to be in writing and notarized, so you already have that. And hindi naman kailangan registered. Again, ang benefit kasi ng registration, meaning na naka-annotate to dun sa title at naka-register sa Register of Deeds, is that pag nabenta yung property, the buyer, for instance, the new buyer, would have to respect the lease na naka-annotate doon sa Certificate of Title. So, hindi naman kailangan yan na registered in order for that lease contract to be valid between you and your landlord.
Parang notice lang yun to the buyer.
Protection, added protection.
Added protection for the tenant. So but not required for it to be valid.
And then, to see pala kung meron silang license to operate, that's one thing that you can check with your city hall. Kasi doon naman kumukuha ng mga business permits, for instance. So yung apartment. And then another place that you can check is the HLURB, if yung developer of that apartment building is registered with them.
All right. Okay.
And Alan wrote us this comment. Ito hindi na question, it's a comment. Watching your show is a great help, not only to a layman, but likewise to a law graduate like me, thereby refreshing the legal knowledge taught in law school. I wish that your show will continue to enlighten everyone's minds, since we are all surrounded with laws in order to attain tranquility and be a safer world to live in, by letting your viewers realize that no one is above the law, and that everyone is accountable to the consequences of their actions, which must always be within the bounds of the law. More power, compañeros. Alan, spoken like a lawyer talaga. Yung mahaba, cannot resist.
Very
no? Pag
wordy.
lawyers, talaga. Thank you, Alan. That was well written.
When I want tranquility, I read law books.
Wag lang mga scra, sasakit ulo mo. But,
and lastly, from Edwin, I really enjoy watching your show. As a policeman, I learned so many laws and legal advice which help a lot in my daily work. I also want to be a lawyer. Good for you. I want to be a lawyer someday, since I am a certified criminologist and at the same time a civil engineer.
Wow, ang talino ni Edwin.
Wow, very smart.
Thank you, Edwin, and I'm
Good
sure
luck.
you'll be a great lawyer. Tama-tama, criminologist, engineer, bali wala na siguro yung law. Kaya niya na yan.
Ano tayo ni Edwin. All right, that's all the time that we have for tonight. We would like to thank our viewers for sending in your questions via our social media pages. I'm Attorney Rod Nepomuceno.
And I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno. If you have any questions on our topic for tonight, post these on our Facebook and Twitter pages. Join us again next Monday as we discuss your legal rights. Good night. insurable, meaning we can really find insurance policies for that? Maybe Attorney Joanne or Attorney Dennis?
Yeah.
These are normally the we call that perils,
Perils, yeah.
Normally, these are the typhoons, the flood, the earthquake, which may be earthquake that may cause fire or tremor, and tornado, cyclone, or anything that may cause significant damage to the property.
Which are unexpected in a way. They're not man-made.
Yes.
So sometimes they're called acts of God, sometimes acts of nature. I don't know why they call it acts of God. Parang it seems that God is punishing us. No?
Yeah.
I think let's call it acts of nature na lang. Baka
But
malindol tayo
out of
dito.
curiosity,
But,
if you see a clause in the insurance policy, kasi normally before you sign or buy insurance, titignan mo what types of coverage are here. Or I guess that's a tip for our viewers. Check first kung anong types of coverage are offered. But if you see just a general phrase that says acts of God or acts of nature, ano yung automatic covered? Because what if the insurance company says, okay, we're covering typhoons, flooding, pero hindi kasamang earthquake? Is that, what are the maybe tips for people who are looking for insurance in terms of looking for keywords na dapat nandun?
Normally, the policy contains the specific peril. For example, if it is typhoon, flood, they will not mention the acts of
Insurance policies that will cover things. Policies that cover their cars and policies that will cover their houses, their residences.
For many Filipinos, getting an insurance policy is not one of their priority. Since the Philippines is located directly within the ring of fire, most insurance brokers recommend that Filipinos get themselves insured as well as their properties, such as their houses and motor vehicles.
At the end of the day, all it is just a method, a way to handle the situation where you have losses. What happens if something goes wrong to your car, or your house, your company? Where will I get funds? Where will I get the money to rebuild, to buy another car, to buy another house? And that's where insurance is.
But before we buy an insurance policy, we have to know, what should we look for in an insurance policy? What are acts of nature, and are these automatically included in most basic insurance policies? And should a natural disaster occur, how can the insured claim their benefits from insurance companies? Good evening. You are watching Legal Help Desk on 9TV. This show is about making the law work for you by giving legal advice on topics that matter to you. I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno.
And I'm Attorney Rod Nepomuceno. Tonight, we will discuss your legal rights on insurance, specifically under the Acts.
For the month of September, the country was pounded by two typhoons, Typhoon Luis and Tropical Storm Mario. Last year, the province of Bohol was left devastated by a 7.2 magnitude earthquake, while the province of Leyte was battered by Typhoon Yolanda. These natural disasters damaged thousands of properties such as houses and commercial buildings, left vehicles of all shapes and sizes floating on flooded streets or dangling on tree branches, not to mention the countless of lives lost because of them. Unfortunately, it is not a common practice for Filipinos to get insurance policies for themselves and their properties. Nor is it common practice to include in their policies protection from the devastation caused by natural disasters. These events that are outside of human control are termed as acts of nature.
Acts of God is basically referring to what they call perils, situations that are considered catastrophic. So these would be things like earthquake, typhoon, flood. There are different types.
Whenever they get insurance, it's normally a thick, normally finely printed paper na print na ng car company.
And generally, what what would be a contract of insurance? Because some people, pag sa cars, ito yung mga susceptible. We just saw the footages. Talagang susceptible siya sa mga bagyo, baha. And people always think na, no, may TPL na ako. I already have insurance for my car. So maybe you can clarify what really is a contract of insurance.
Well, a contract of insurance, this is actually a written instrument or a document containing the agreement between the two parties, no? Between the insurer and the insured. And the insurer promises to indemnify the insured for any loss or any liability or any damage to the property or asset of the insured, no? And for guaranteeing or assuming that risk, the insurer is entitled to the payment of premium.
Premiums, okay. So basically, the elements there is payment of a premium, there's risk, and then a particular property or a particular, a subject matter that would be sort of like covered by the insurance, right?
Yes.
And then indemnification.
And
so
then,
yes.
so we already know basically yung kung ano yung nasa contract, but in terms of what we call, what you're insuring against, meaning some people insure against health, but now we're concentrating on natural calamities or what we call acts of God. What types of natural calamities or acts of God are normally
of nature coverage? What you need to know about the acts of nature coverage and what you need to do to claim your benefits from insurance companies.
Our guests for tonight are Attorney Dennis Cabucos, Chief of the Regulation, Enforcement, and Prosecution Division, and Attorney Joanne Castro, Media Relations Officer of the Insurance Commission. Good evening.
Good evening, Attorney Rod, Attorney Karen.
Right, Attorney Joanne and Attorney Dennis, thank you very much for joining us. And in a way, appropriate tong topic natin for tonight.
Because just last week, we had magkasunod yung kay Typhoon Luis and then Tropical Storm Mario, which brought a lot of damages again to a lot of properties. In fact, kahit yung cousin ko was texting with me na meron siyang friend, nag-float away daw yung car sa Makati and she was traumatized because she had her young daughter inside the car and talagang lumutang yung kotse.
So definitely it's something that's sort of like relevant now, no, at these times. Now, before we start off, for me personally, insurance, the concept of insurance is probably the best invention, one of the best inventions of man. No? But for some reason, Filipinos are allergic with insurance. So
ilan
maybe
percentage ba up to now yung insured in the Philippines?
In the Philippines, we have a data that 25% of the population are now covered by insurance. That is as of last year.
That's still very low, diba?
Compared to 100 million population in the Philippines.
So what are the elements? What are the specific elements of contract of insurance? Because for a lot of people,